Hey, this is John with Two Moose Home Inspections, and welcome to the May 2021 in-service training. At the start of these in-service trainings, my main objective is to get through this as quickly as possible so that way I'm not wasting your time. Now, another thing you can do is you can go ahead on YouTube and click 2x speed, so that way we go through this even faster. But today, my objective really is to get this kind of compacted down into hopefully less than an hour. That is my objective. And so before we go any further, let's take a look at Notion and see what we have going on for the May 2021 in-service training. So the very first thing, safety topics. So the biggest, most exciting and amazing, if you've seen our COVID-19 update, the biggest thing that we have is that all of our inspection team has been vaccinated against COVID-19. This is a huge deal. We have been vaccinated for about a month now, and this has been absolutely amazing. So again, if you as a customer feel comfortable not wearing a mask, if you are vaccinated, we now have guidance from the CDC that says that if you are vaccinated and vaccinated people are indoors together, that we do not have to wear a mask. Now, as a baseline, we are still going to wear our masks and ask if you feel comfortable with us wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, and we will do whatever it takes to make you guys feel comfortable while you're at your home inspection. So the next thing that we have is updates. So we have new tools, the GLM 50C and the Klein RT250. So what does this mean? What is this for us? So basically the GLM is made by Bosch, and what it is a laser measurer. So you basically just point that laser measurer at something and it tells you the distance. This has been really helpful for us instead of using a tape measure. It allows us to have a level. It allows us to run a tape measure and have the overall distance that we have things going. And another really interesting feature that we've done for a couple of our customers is that they've been doing measurements. And one of the things that you can do with that Bosch device is you can download an app. And whenever you download that app, you are then able to click and take a photo. So now you have a photo of a room. You can draw a line, measure the line, and then you can draw another line, measure that line, and then what it'll do is show up on the picture with those measurements. So we've had people take a lot of really complex measurements and it works flawlessly and really, really cool. Helpful for us, helpful for our customers. The next thing is the RT250. So the RT250 is made by Klein Tools, and what it is a receptacle tester. And that receptacle tester will actually, every time that we hit GFCI reset, it will actually tell us how many milliseconds it takes. And again, 200 milliseconds or less is great for a GFCI. Anything above that is a little bit excessive. And so we just don't want to be there with our GFCIs. And so what we would normally have to do is we had this $200 tool that we would plug in, be able to test the outlets, and it did a lot of things that we didn't need it to do, like voltage drop testing, resistance, a whole bunch of other stuff that just didn't need to happen, and it became cumbersome. Now, as an inspector, you could feel whenever you were pressing the button if that was tripping, less than 200 milliseconds. You're gonna be like, John, that's insane. There's no way you could tell. And the answer is, whenever you trip enough GFCIs, I guarantee you can tell the difference between a fast one and a slow one, and you can pretty much guess whether or not it's fast or slow normally just by looking at it, but you can also, just with the feel, know exactly what's going on. Now with this tester, what is awesome is that every single receptacle that we test, we are also at that same time testing to make sure that it's less than 200 milliseconds, which is perfect and ideal and exactly what I wanted. And so everybody's been updated with these new tools, and I really think that helps us step it up to the next level to make sure that you guys are safe for the people that we are doing the inspections for, that our clients are safe. So then we take a look that tasks to complete first, pace, and limiting factors. So having Jeremy be with our team for several months now, we've really gone through and started to understand, what it is that we really do to streamline our process. So that way we aren't wasting our time, we aren't wasting his time, we aren't wasting our client's time. And one of the things is tasks to be completed first. Well, those are tasks that are going to extend past just the normal inspection. And so what that would be is a well recovery test. That's a 2-hour test. Believe me, you do not want to be sitting in your truck for 2 hours waiting for that test to complete. So you want to start that test at the very beginning, and you can actually run that test in parallel while you're doing the rest of the inspection. In addition to that, something else you can run in parallel is the testing of the dishwasher and the testing of the laundry machine. So basically any laundry machine, whether it be the washer or dryer, we need to run for a certain period of time. Well, we don't need to, but we do. So whenever we run it for a certain period of time, that's normally about an hour. And so if you get into a smaller condo that only takes an hour to maybe an hour and 45 minutes, depending on the condo, you really want to make sure the very first thing you do is you step in, you get that dishwasher running. So then how do we do that? Well, the very first thing we do is we inventory everything that we have in that kitchen. So we take a picture of the dishwasher, we take a picture of the refrigerator, we take a picture of the disposal, of the microwave, of the range, of the oven. We try to get serial numbers whenever they're readily accessible. And so then what we do is once we have all that, the very first thing we do is we hit start on that dishwasher, then we move over to the laundry room, then we hit start on those machines, And then, just like NASCAR, we have a starting point, we turn left, and we keep on turning left until we've completed the inspection. And so that's basically the way that it goes down, is that we want to make sure that the tasks to complete first are the tasks we complete first. Next is pace. Sometimes you walk into a room and there's nothing wrong with the room. And whenever there's nothing wrong with the room, you're looking around and you're like, well, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Well, nothing, because the room is done. The room is perfect. It is a perfect room. The drywall is great. The window is great. The trim is great. The carpet is great. The walls are great. Everything is great. The closet door works. The door to the hallway works. All of that stuff works. The receptacles are wonderful. There's no issues. Okay, so then how do we keep the pace? How do we keep that going? And as a part of our training, we've really been focusing on pace. Not that we're trying to speed through anything. What we're really trying to do is just maintain a solid pace and work our way through the house. So that way we don't just kind of get hung up on certain things, because we do have busy schedules. We do have a lot of inspections per day. And so we really want to make sure that we are streamlining our process and getting that rhythm, getting that pace. And again, with Jeremy, our newest inspector, being with us for several months now, it's really been apparent that having a good solid pace really makes for a very positive outcome with those home inspections. So the next thing is limiting factors. What can limit our inspection? What is something that will slow us down, that will reduce our efficiency, and how do we mitigate that? Now, I'm very guilty, because last week I had probably a 2-hour-long conversation with one of the clients as we were just talking about the house, whatever. Like literally standing there at the door, just having a conversation, and I am notorious for doing that. And so anyway, I'm sorry, that's a limiting factor. What I need to be able to do is say, hey, let's continue this conversation while I walk through this room. And there are a lot of things that can limit the speed, the efficiency of the home inspection. And some of those things are in our control, and some of those things are not in our control. And so depending on those things, it's very important to understand what we as inspectors have control of and what we as inspectors don't have control of. So that way we can be future thinking, forward thinking, and making sure that we're getting done what needs to get done in a timely manner. So the next, final checklist and inspection report. So, wow, they call it CYA, which is cover your ass. And basically what that means is that you want to take photos and videos of things that could potentially come back and be a liability issue for you. Now, granted, we do have these issues come up, and that's full disclosure, where somebody says, you did not do this, or you did not do that. Well, the nice thing is, at the end of our inspection reports, the big ticket items, we do have a checkoff where we will take a photograph, we will acknowledge, we will even do a video, depending on the inspection at the very end, where we close the door and we say, okay, this house is locked up, everything is good to go. There was one window that could not be locked because of this. We notified the realtor, or we had these issues, we notified the realtor, or there was no issues and we did everything on the final checklist. And that final checklist is really good. And I'm not being negative towards anyone or anyone's situation whatsoever. What I am saying, though, is that this is a very emotional process. Why is it that you're selling your house? Do you want to be selling your house? Do you need the money? Do you need to move because of a job? Do you really want to be selling your house? And if so, if it's financial, maybe you need more money. And so whatever you can do to discredit the home inspector is the best thing that can be done to make sure that you don't have to do any of the repairs that the home inspector made. And I totally get that as a valid strategy. However, keep in mind that we are people as well, and we are a small business. And, myself, I am able to provide an income to two people that have families. And it is very important that everybody just try to be as honest as possible. And that is why we have at the very end of our checklist, a final checklist to make sure that certain items are definitely turned off, certain things have been locked, certain things are being taken care of. And for us as inspectors, and again, this is an in-service training, so it's mostly for our guys to reference, but for the general public as well, we want to make sure that we leave that house exactly the way that we left it, which is why when we first enter a house, the very first thing we do is we take 360-degree photos of every single room before we touch anything. Because if I touch something and I end up causing damage or whatever, I want to be able to document I'm the one that caused the damage because I want to pay for the damage that I cause. Perfect. The next thing is I want to make sure that we always have the same process and procedure. So that way, whenever we go through something, it's like, okay, well, we always do this, and then we do this, and then we do this, and then we do this. So there really is no way that we could have had the fault that we are talking about or not talking about. And then we want to make sure that whenever we do things, that we take photographs of things such as, did you leave this on? Did you turn this off? Are all the thermostats reset to the way that they are? And I will tell you, ever since we implemented that final checklist back in March, the beginning of March, it has been a game changer. There are times where I will have anxiety and I'll be sitting there or laying in bed And I'll say, oh, did I turn off the range? Did I turn off the thermostat? Did I do what I was supposed to do? Oh my goodness. And now if I don't think that I did, I just look right back. Hey, there's the photograph that we did it. And it's very important for us as inspectors that we do this because again, selling a house is a very, very emotional thing. And I'm not saying anything disparagingly about anybody or any situation, but what I will say is that I understand that there are different strategies on how to go through a sale and how to put more control, power, whatever it may be, into the situation of the negotiation. If there even is a negotiation, because lately people have just been saying no. But it's just so important that whenever we're going forward, that we do things honestly and we do things to the best of our ability. Now, let's go ahead and talk about honesty real quick. I did a house, and you can see that there is water damage because now, granted, we did mention in the report that there was water that was seeping through the foundation into another room. However, this room here, we did not identify the damage and the water seeping in through the wall. And why did we not identify that? Well, because they put their moving boxes here. And the thing is, I'm the one that did this inspection, and I found the water near the window, in the wall, in the saturation, and things moving through. But I want to find as much as I can. And right here on this wall, I said, oh, okay, somebody's just moving, because they were literally moving. Things were packed up, and I'm like, this is a nice, neat area to put stuff. It's not in an area that I would have thought that we would have had water damage, but that's, I believe, because it was being trapped between the porch and this. And so when we talk about honesty going through the sale of a house, it is very important to understand that not everybody has the same level of integrity. And I'm not saying anything about a person's integrity. I'm not saying people do this maliciously or on purpose. It could very well be that these boxes in this room, these are the only boxes that were in that room, that they just happen to be placed right there, right in front of the water stain from the leaking foundation, where this water is coming through and says that we have to dig out the foundation, reapply a waterproof membrane, maybe put in a French drain, deal with all these water mitigation issues, maybe $20,000 worth of credits that would have had to have been applied to the buyer, so they would have lost $20,000 into the house because of these issues. And I'm not saying that somebody would put boxes in front of something in order to not have to lose that $20,000. I would never say that. But what I am saying is that there are boxes that were put in front of something, and those boxes that were put in front of something should not have been. And it's just so upsetting whenever people will not be completely honest or have full integrity whenever they are doing something with the sale of the house. And again, that is why we have home inspectors, so that way we can go and try to find these issues. I am so thankful that in this particular house, I was able with the thermal camera to detect another area where there was water infiltration into these walls. And this just happens to be another section that will need work. But the main issue was at least identified, which would then start the cascade effect of having a specialist come in and verify the entire foundation's waterproofness, and then going from there. It's just stuff like this just makes me so aggravated, because it doesn't need to be that way. It does not need to be an adversarial thing. Anyway, if you've watched enough of these in-service trainings, you know that there's a soapbox, and I end up standing on it, and I think that I just stood on this soapbox for way too long. The long story short is, yes, we do have parts in our report where we cover our ass, because there are things that we do correctly that people will try to call us out on. And real quick, last little bit of the soapbox. The best thing is with these 360 photos, somebody said, you left our, and this was 6, 8, 10 months ago. I don't even remember. Somebody said, you left our house in shambles. Our house was in shambles. And we said, we take 360 photos right at the very beginning. And this is what your house looked like. And your house looked like that right whenever we left as well. And this is what you're complaining about your house looking like. Their house was in shambles because they had their house in shambles. And it was amazing because the realtor was with us during the entire inspection that day. And they were like, I was getting so much heat, so much, whatever from this other realtor, like, you were there, how could you let this happen, so on and so forth. And so the realtor representing the buyer's agent working with us that was there the entire time was like, oh my gosh, we didn't leave the house in shambles. The house was already a wreck. How do I prove this? And we're like, hey, we have 360 photos. We have this already showing what the condition was. And believe me, the house was in shambles. It was ridiculous. And it was amazing because as soon as that realtor showed those 360 photos that were taken right whenever we first entered the house, it was just a microphone drop. And that was it. It was done. There was no more conversation to be had. The seller was no longer upset about the condition of the house, because we had photo evidence of the condition of the house whenever we first started the inspection. All right, now I'm done with my soapbox, I promise. All right, so Let's take a look at this one. Again, rapid fire. We're going to go through this rapid fire. I'm going to try to get this done in a half hour. Is it going to happen? No, but we're going to try. And that's the important thing. So what we have going on is that we have, sorry, I got a phone call from one of my employees here. I will give him a call back in just a minute. So what we have going on is that the this one house had an active leak. So everything looked perfect. This house was amazing. Everything was absolutely perfect. And so I'm going through with the camera and I'm like, okay, I see the hot water, great. That's, you know, bright yellow. And I see the cold water and that is like a dark blue. Fantastic. But I was like, what is this little extra little bit here? And what that little extra bit was a small drip leak. Now the amount of moisture that was there, it was not completely saturated. There was no staining. There was no nothing, but there was a drip leak. There was moisture. Now the problem was, and I felt very bad for the seller, is that they have already done an asbestos remediation and they know for a fact that there is asbestos inside of those ceilings because the house is from the 1980s. And or beforehand, and anyway, the problem then is that repair, instead of just being a simple cut out the drywall, put, you know, make the repair, put it back in, boom, you're done, $50 worth of materials. You're now talking, you know, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 to do this simple repair, and the house was immaculate. This person took such good care of this house, and I feel so bad for them, but. At the end of the day, it is a drip leak and somebody needs to take care of it, or there needs to be a credit given to get it taken care of or something. And again, that's between the realtors, but it's just one of those things that it's just a little disheartening whenever you see somebody take such good care of their house. And then there's this little thing that they had no idea about because I could not see the issue, but the thermal camera allowed me to see it. And anyway, I felt bad for them because they took such good care of the house. So anyway, moving on, so we have a retaining wall that was failing, and so basically you get a hydraulic effect where basically you have all of this water that pushes into the wall, and if you don't have good drainage for the water to come down and out, then it's going to push into the wall, and then we are going to have the wall blowing out. Now, in this particular one, the driveway was massive, so does this matter? No. Let it fall down, rebuild it, and then fill it with gravel on the backside, and then whenever you're ready to repave the driveway, repave the driveway. But it is a big enough deal because it exists, and people should know about it. So moving on, if you can tell in a crawl space, this is standing water, and that's bad. You don't want that to happen. So if you take a look, there's also more areas of standing water, and a lot of this standing water is really from spring runoff. It is whenever we have snow melt, that all comes down, and some of these places get saturated. Now, the interesting thing is, surprisingly, I did not see any mold growth. Now, I guarantee there must be some mold growth in there. There has to be, but I did not see any mold growth. Additionally, there were no indications or signs of any foundation movement, settlement, anything along those lines. So there was none of that. Was the driveway sloped down into that crawl space? Yes, the driveway was sloped down into that crawl space. And it was actually a large parking lot for this whole structure. And multiple buildings have the same issue. However, these buildings were built over 50-something years ago, and they have no indications of foundation movement. They have no indications of any kind of damage whatsoever, and it's seasonal, and then it just stops and everything's bone dry after that. So does it matter? The answer is yes, it does matter, but how much does it matter? Well, that's up to you, the buyer. And in general terms, would it be ideal if there was not moisture in there? Yes, it would be great if there was not moisture, and that's okay that there is to an extent, but just understanding the situation that we find ourselves in, we really don't want there to be moisture in there, but we also understand this is spring runoff and it's been happening for 50 years with no adverse effects that we can readily see at this point. So next thing, whenever you have a paint oversprayed into an electrical panel, you really want to make sure that you do not have paint oversprayed into an electrical panel, because if you do, then if there was too much heat, whatever, that paint could ignite and then you could have a fire hazard. So inside the electrical panel, there really should be no paint. Are we going to change anything about this? No, we aren't going to change anything about this until maybe 50 years and we want to update the electrical panel to something more modern. So it's just going to stay the way that it is. Now, this is a water intrusion failure on this sliding glass door. The reality is, where this house was, we had over 6 feet of snow, thankfully, like, it was amazing. There was so much snow, and I'm like, I cannot get to the crawl space. I think it's located right here. And the buyer was like, I will find a shovel. I will dig it out. Keep doing the inspection. Let's get this done. And we got it done. We got into the crawl space. He dug out so much snow, but there was 6 feet of snow. So what does this tell me? What this tells me is that this house was not used regularly. We had snow backed up and piled up against that sliding glass door. And whenever that happens, as we get that hot sun coming down, we're going to get some water on the top surface melting, going down the back and then into the door. And so that's just a normal thing that happens. However, it has damaged the floor. It has whatever. So what's the remedy to this? Well, you could replace the door for like $8 grand. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Or what you could do is you could just shovel the walkway. If you shovel the walkway, then this issue goes away. You don't have it anymore. So something to think about. This house is really cool. This is the first time that I saw an electric in-ceiling radiant heat. And so I have in my garage an electric radiant heater that is based on the ceiling, but it is not inside the ceiling. It is just a very thin 6 foot long, very thin by like 6 inches, 2 inches thick, 6 inches wide, 6 feet long, and that is on my garage on the ceiling, and it heats up the concrete pad, and that's how my electric ceiling radiant heater works. But this is in ceiling radiant. You don't get to see the heating elements. I have not seen one of those except for in this particular complex, and very, very interesting. That was a first. I was happy to see that. It's always neat to see new things. So this jetted tub, the motor was not functioning. It was really interesting because the motor was on and running, but it wasn't really pushing anything. It was moving water, but it wasn't really pushing. So we either have a bad motor, we have some sort of a clog, it's not allowing enough air to come in, there's a bad seal, a million different issues, but there was no leaking, which is at least a good thing because they should be able to update those components and then have a jetted tub that's working the way that it's supposed to. So this one here, covered register. So they put down a carpet, and I think they put the carpet over top the register, which is fine. But then normally once they lay the carpet, they come back, they cut out the carpet, and then they allow the register to push hot air where it needs to be pushed. In this particular case, in this particular house, that register was covered over, but they never did the cutout procedure and finalize it. So it is what it is. Basically, if you have a knife, you can cut that out, put a new register vent on top to make a good transition between the carpet and the register, and you can have nice heat coming out into that bathroom. Well, it wasn't the bathroom, it was the sink adjacent to the bathroom. So there's no carpet in the bathroom. We're okay. So anyway, that's just something we can see with the thermal camera. So right here, we have a whole bunch of hot wires, a whole mess of hot wires, and there is no cover plate, and there is no lock on that utility. And so if a child were to open that and touch anything in there, that would be a very, very, very bad outcome. And so we really want to make sure that if we have access to something, if a child, and this was only a few, gosh, this was only like 3 feet, 2 feet off the ground, maybe 2.5 feet off the ground. And the problem with that is that if a child were, let's say, to touch that, then they're going to seriously get injured. And that is one of the last things that we want to have happen. So easy repair. What we're going to do is just put a cover plate onto that, and then we should be good to go. So moving on from there, what we have is that there was a vertical support in this garage, and it was not adequately anchored to the floor. Now, what's wrong with that is that if a car bumps it, if a person bumps it, if you lean some heavy stuff up against it, then that can actually slide out, and as it slides out, then the whole structure of the garage fails, and you're gonna have a bad day. So what does it take to take a hammer drill, all you really need is two drill holes, and then put a Tapcon in there, you're good to go. I mean, we're talking a total investment of time of 8 minutes, maybe, if you have the materials around you. If not, the drive to the hardware store, back, and then 8 minutes, that's really not that bad. So that's that anchoring, and there were 2 of these posts that had an issue. So then we come over here, Zinsco. If you see anything at Zinsco, just get it replaced. The fact is that you don't need a ticking time bomb inside of your wall. You don't need to say, hey, I've turned off the breaker, I'm gonna go do some electrical stuff, because the reality is that you are gonna get yourself shocked. Zinsco will say that it's turned off, but it's not turned off. You just really wanna make sure that things are done properly, and we know if you have a Federal Pacific or if you have a Zinsco, you need to get that panel gone. Get it gone. There's too many fires, too many issues, too many things going on. It's just a bit much. Now, in this Zinsco panel, it was really awesome. So basically, what you have is a common trip. So a common trip will take 2 of these, and so you have 120 on one, 120 on the other. That comes together, gives you your 240. And so you can run larger appliances like an electric dryer. And what happens is you'll then have a common trip. Now, that common trip is normally like a plastic or metal clip, as you can see on these other ones, that whenever one trips, one leg of that electricity at 240 section, let's say there was an issue, and that trips because there's a short circuit or something, then it'll also turn off the other leg, the other half of it. Otherwise, they'll both be electrified. Believe it or not, athletic tape is not the correct solution for how to do a common trip. So just easy things that can be fixed. However, I think on this one, since it's a Zinsco, we're just going to want to replace the entire thing and put in new modern breakers to make sure things are safe. So underneath this deck, you need to put nails in the holes. If you don't put nails in the holes, you're going to have a bad time. And so I think every single of those joists, there was just no nails going into those joists, which means that the whole rim joist can push away. And so basically, since there's nothing here, that rim joist can push away, and then this will fall down. And if that happens, then your deck falls down and people get hurt, and that's just not good. So wood storage, why does this matter? It doesn't really, but there's a lot of pests, there's a lot of rodents, a lot of many things, and also risks of fire and whatnot, and just don't, and moisture, oh my gosh, like whenever moisture gets trapped up against there, you're gonna damage your house. Just give some space away from the house whenever you have all of your firewood. It's just something to do to make sure the house does not get damaged, to make sure you don't have pests that you don't need to have. Just get her done. So next thing, hot tub, GFCI breaker not present. So next to a hot tub, there should be a GFCI breaker. There should be a breaker within a very short distance to make sure that if there is an issue where you want to toast some bread while you're in the hot tub, that if the toaster falls into the hot tub, nobody's going to get hurt. Or if there's an electrical issue on the interior of the hot tub and it creates a grounding issue that could then electrify the water, then we want to make sure that GFCI trips so that way everybody's nice and safe and good. Now, we just like to fix this, all you need to do is just buy a $40 metal box, put the wires into it, put it into the breaker, take the wires out, close the box, good to go, Bob's your uncle, everything's all set. So it's a very easy repair, but again, the risk that you're putting people at is too severe to just ignore it. If you're gonna build a deck right. I think this is pretty much like the theme of this month, is if you're gonna build a deck right. Now I went to one deck, it was done by CMR, they did an amazing job. So Colorado Mountain Renovations, and that's run by Eli Brown. I went to a deck of his. It was probably this year's winner of best constructed deck. Absolutely phenomenal. This is not. This might be the winner of worst constructed deck. As we went deeper into this deck, the issues just kept coming out and coming out and coming out. This is just one example of just poor build quality, but once you go underneath the deck, then you just see more and more and more and more. Long story short, for one of the easy things is don't use screws. Screws are just going to shear without any warning, where a nail is going to bend and bend and bend and bend and bend and bend and then break. And you are going to know well before it breaks that your deck is having a hard time. So pretty please build decks correctly. I know that whenever you go to get a deck built, it's going to be $40,000, $60,000 to get a deck built, but they get built correctly. They are permitted. They are engineered. Ugh, come on, just get it done right. So next thing, water temps in excess of 120 degrees. So this was 131.2 Fahrenheit. Basically, how do you know the water's too hot? Well, you put your hand in it and it hurts. If you put your hand in there and it hurts, then the water's too hot. Or you can use some type of measuring device to measure how hot it is. But basically, whenever you have small children, you want to make sure that you have either a mixing valve to make sure that the water doesn't get hot. Because what people will do is they will make their holding tank extremely hot. And the reason they make it so hot is so then that way, they have a whole bunch of hot water, and that hot water is able to then stay hotter for longer because you aren't going to use 131 degree water. You might only use 110 degree water. But so then that way they have 131 degree, and as that fresh cold water is coming into the hot water tank, is being heated up a little bit more rapidly, allowing them to take longer showers, so on and so forth. But you want to have a mixing valve because that mixing valve is going to make sure that whenever a kid turns on the hot water, and that mixing valve can be local to that faucet, it can be right after the hot water heater, it can be wherever you want to put it. But the main thing is if a child turns on that and puts their hands in underneath that water, are they going to be scalded or are they going to be perfectly fine? And the main thing is we want the kid to be perfectly fine, that or the adult, because that hurt. So moving on, I really like that we have 360 degree cameras. Whenever we go through and we take our pictures, if there's a skylight, we stick the camera up into the skylight and we find pictures just like this, where there is clear evidence that we have water intrusion from the skylight. So we want to make sure that we are getting all of that resolved, whether it be with better flashing, better caulking, whatever it may be, that we get that 100% resolved. So whenever you have a garage door opener, you want that garage door opener to be solid and secure. Whenever you have a loose nut or a loose bolt or just missing the nut altogether, then that garage door opener with all that torque and all that force trying to open it up can actually fall off, damage itself, damage the car underneath, damage the garage door. And so for a 5-cent nut that you can just put right on there, make it tight, easy fix, easy fix. But if not, the ramifications could be a little bit more severe because you could damage your vehicle pretty easily. So right here, adhesive siding on this material. This was a gorgeous house, absolutely gorgeous house. And they had these metal sheets that were basically the siding, and it was very like modern, rustic. It was gorgeous. However, in a couple of sections, whoever installed it neglected to take off the protective coating of plastic. It's like whenever somebody gets a new electronic device and there's that blue film on it, and they keep the blue film or the clear film on it because they're like, it's going to protect it. That's all well and good, but once you expose it to UV light, then that adhesive and plastic break down, and in this case, you cannot remove it any longer. It is now permanently stuck that adhesive is now permanently stuck to those materials, and I don't think you can remove it without damaging it, or you'll be very hard pressed to do so. So again, there have been many times, even like with gutters, where we will see a gutter that was installed or flashing, and they just never took off that plastic strip. Always take off the protective plastic strip once it's been installed. So coming into here, we have sewer scope. There was a sag in a pipe. There was a whole bunch of sludge buildup, a whole bunch of other issues. So whenever we do a sewer scope inspection, these are the kind of things that we look for. We'll have a really, really good one for the next in-service training, where the whole top of that pipe is now broken, gone, and no longer there. And that was damaged on day number 1. And so anyway, it's very important that you get a sewer scope, because you have no idea what's going on, 6 feet underneath the ground. And a repair like this, like the one that we have, could be tens of thousands of dollars easily, because the one that we'll be talking about here next month is basically in the center of a large communal asphalt parking lot. And that's going to be expensive. That's going to be very, very, very expensive. So hopefully the HOA will help cover some of those expenses. All right, let's talk about radon. So radon is a colorless, odorless, radioactive gas. It is a byproduct of uranium. It sends off an alpha particle, destroys parts of your lungs, and it is the second leading cause of lung cancer, only to smoking tobacco. It is the #1 cause for lung cancer for people that do not smoke cigarettes. So the main thing to keep in mind here is that we want to get that radon out. So how do we get it? Well, radon loves low pressure. Whenever you have your roof, the atmosphere is pushing down on the roof, and because of that, you have a slightly lower pressure inside the house than you do on the outside of the house. And then whenever you add all your HVAC systems, then yes, you could definitely have a significantly lower pressure inside the house than you do on the exterior of the house. Now, the thing is, we want to create a negative pressure. We want to suck that air out. In this case, you can see there's quite a bit of suction, but the pipe kind of just ends right there, and I don't think that's quite adequate. So what you really want to do is that they should take a French drain style pipe, a perforated pipe, put that all around the interior of the crawl space, then seal plastic over top of it and have it connected to that pipe. And so that way we're taking that entire area, we're creating an area of low pressure all throughout the entire crawl space, not just in that one isolated section right where it is. Now they're going to say, oh, but John, it's going to work everywhere. It's not going to work everywhere. It's really not. It's just not. Let me ask you a question. Do you like applesauce? I love applesauce. Have you ever had one of those little like go packs of applesauce, and it's so good, and so you're so excited to squeeze it and you suck it in? Well, the problem is you sucked in all the applesauce, but right here we got ourselves a seal. And so now I have perfectly good applesauce at the bottom of the bag, and I have no applesauce here. No matter how hard I suck on that, I am not going to get the rest of that applesauce out until I break that seal, and then I'm able to suck the rest of the applesauce out. Same idea going on right here. People say, oh, well, no, it'll work because like ground is porous. And no. You want an evenly distributed area of low pressure. You do not want super low pressure here and maybe it's low pressure here. You want to have a pipe that goes all the way around to make sure we have evenly distributed areas of low pressure to equally take that radon up and out of the house. That's the objective. So, bad job. Moving on, this was amazing. So this is dog food. Don't freak out. This is dog food. So dog food and insulation. So in this garage, there was a small hole behind the refrigerator. And whenever you go into the crawl space, there's this wall that is just filled with basically an entire bag worth of dog food. And a squirrel or something was like, wow, there's all this dog food. I'm going to get all of it, and I'm just going to hide it right in here so I can get back to it. Well, unfortunately, I think the squirrel was never able to re-enter the garage because all of this dog food was left untouched. But just very interesting what certain pests will do. So basically the remedy, cut off that plastic, remove all of that, vacuum, clean, whatever, put plastic back up, put insulation back up, and obviously patch that hole, and we're good to go. This one just cracked me up because like this was one of the cleanest crawl spaces that I've ever been to, and then you look over there and you're like, whoa, what is that? And it was so funny because it's just one isolated area. There wasn't any urine. There wasn't any poop. It literally was a food store, and that was it. It was amazing. So yeah, that was that. It was just hilarious. All right, so we want to make sure that we have our water pipe supported. Anytime that you have a pipe or an electrical line, which we'll see a little bit later, you want to have it adequately supported, because if not, it is going to put tension on the fittings on either side, and then those fittings are going to be damaged, or the pipe could kink, be damaged, or pull down other things that it shouldn't be pulling down or get snagged on something. So it takes nothing to just adequately secure these every few feet. That would be ideal. All right, so why does this matter? We're missing a little piece of hardware. You can see kind of right up over in that picture, way over there, that we drew in what the handle should look like. So you might not be able to get that replacement handle. You might be able to get that replacement handle, but either way, it's going to cost you money in order to do so. So we just want to make sure that we are addressing things that are going to end up costing you money or be a challenge down the road. Because let's say they don't make that part anymore. Then do you have to replace the whole valve assembly? And do you feel comfortable replacing that whole valve assembly? So we just want to make sure that you know everything you need to know. Now, speaking about replacing things, in this bathtub, there should normally be 4 of these, like it should make like a plus sign. And in the center of the plus sign, there should be a little threaded piece where you can thread in one of those pop up, pop down kind of stoppers. And this did not have that because it was broken. And so replacing those drains is often very, very challenging. Now, if you have an accessible crawl space, then yeah, it's totally doable. But if not, it's a pain in the butt. So condensate neutralizer cartridge replacement. So you got 30 bucks. This little cartridge, again, that's right here. You just want to make sure that you are replacing the beads that are inside of there, because you don't want that acidic water going into your septic. You don't want that acidic water going into your pipes or going into a water treatment facility. You want to make sure you've neutralized all of that stuff to make sure that we're doing right by our environment and right by our house, because again, those pipes can be damaged. So as the condensate water drips through there, as it goes through those beads, it becomes like a 7 pH, totally neutral, and it can go down, the water can go down your pipes and it's perfectly fine. So when we talk about disconnected takeoff ducts, basically what this is you have your main duct, and then off of that, you are going to have these arms that then go to each one of the rooms. Not only is this disconnected where it's kind of falling off, there's other issues with this is not a conditioned crawl space, which means that we would need to put insulation on this. We also would want to tape those seams so that way we don't have extra air coming out of it. And in this particular case, one of these takeoffs, we're getting like no heat coming through that one room. And so there's a lot of things that could be done to make it more energy efficient whenever we are running our system. So, all right, so damage on the interior of a refrigerator. Have you ever tried to order parts for your refrigerator, or any appliance for that matter? Do you think that the manufacturer wants you to get replacement parts, or do you think the manufacturer wants you to buy a brand new refrigerator with all the margin and markup that it might have? Well, the answer is they probably want more margin and not less with parts. And so finding parts is often very, very challenging. And so whenever there is damage to the inside or the outside of an appliance, we definitely do our best to make sure that we let you know, because it does cost money. All right. Handrail, guardrail not graspable, or handrail not graspable. So basically on this, think of yourself as an arthritic 90-year-old version of yourself. Can you grab onto that in a moment's notice, in a panic, unexpectedly, and be able to grab onto that railing and not take a header all the way down the stairs? If you answered no to that question, then your handrails are probably not graspable. We can get into all the nitty-gritty details of what is and what is not and all the measurements that are taken and so on and so forth, but I don't really care. What I care about is if I was 90 years old and my hands could not grip as well as they normally could, can I grab that? Can I grab that before I go headfirst down those stairs? And the answer in this case is no, but it looks gorgeous. So then it comes down to you as the homeowner. Does it matter to you? If it's predictable, it's preventable. So what we want to do is we want to try to prevent injury if at all possible, because we can predict that it can happen. However, there are some very beautiful custom homes that putting on a specific type of railing will really detract from the quality and the aesthetic of the house. And so it just depends on your risk management, what you're concerned about, your risk tolerance, I guess, and going from there. So again, handrails missing at these stairs. There's like 4 stairs coming down from this thing. And again, do you need it? No, I mean, if you're used to your house, it's only 4 stairs and you feel comfortable tripping and jumping down to the bottom, great. However, there's a bunch of stuff at the bottom and it's going to hurt if you go down those stairs. So we just want to make sure that we're doing what we can to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe, because it's whenever you least expect it that you're going to end up having a problem. And we just want to make sure that you as a homeowner and the people that visit your house are going to stay safe. So sulfur smell. So we end up doing water tests and other things like that. This water was nasty. Now it did pass its tests, but there are some like filtering and other things that need to happen. It's all manageable. It's 100% manageable. But again, with that sulfur smell and other things, like to get rid of that can be challenging. And so we just want to make sure that the water that your family is drinking is safe for your family to be drinking, which is why we offer water tests, which is why we offer well recovery tests to make sure there's enough water for your family. And just one of those things that we definitely want you to think about. So filler plates not present. Again, if you can take your finger and you can stick it into any opening in an electrical panel, then that's bad, and you just want to fill it in. So $1.50, you can take a filler plate and you can just push it, pop it right in, and you're good to go. So really, really easy repair. So here, Parge coat damage. So basically, Parge coat is just like a thin set of like mortar or something else along those lines. It's a cement-based mix that goes onto normally concrete masonry units, CMUs, cinder blocks. That's what it goes onto. And it normally pops off like that whenever we have a little bit of moisture. In this particular case, we had a kick-out flashing that was not doing what it's supposed to do. And we also had a buildup of snow. And so I believe that that was the underlying issue, that coming off the roof, it was going right down all of the siding and then right onto that Parge coat. And then we also had areas where we just had still, at the time of this inspection, snow piles all over the house. And so again, whenever you have snow resting up against the house, then you have the potential for damage, and that's just something to be mindful of. So exterior doors. In the case of a fire, now we thought about ourselves as a 90-year-old arthritic version of ourselves. What we really want to think about ourselves now is as a 6-year-old version of ourselves. We have mobility, we're moving, we're walking, we're doing whatever. You know, Dad's fixing the car over in the garage, and I tried cooking, and whoops, I accidentally caught the house on fire because I'm only 6 years old and I shouldn't try cooking, but I did anyway. And now what happens is that I go to exit the house, but there's a deadbolt there and it needs a key. And because it needs a key or whatever, I cannot actually get out of it. Then that's a bad outcome. So basically, if you have to have a key or some other special, procedure to be able to get out of the house, that is completely inadequate. We need it to be a twist knob, whatever, to unlock that deadbolt, to open up the door, to get out safely. So again, think of yourself as a 90-year-old arthritic version of yourself that dropped that key, or think of yourself as a 6-year-old version of yourself that tried cooking for the first time, caught the house on fire, and needs to quickly exit the house. This type of potential injury, death, whatever it may be, is completely avoidable. And if you have yourself $15, you can replace that. So just something to think about. All right, whenever we build a deck, yes, we do have a vertical post. And on that vertical post, you can see that there are those 2 screws at the top, and then there are going to be 2 screws on the side holding this stuff on the side. Now, those screws are structural screws, so that's fine. They're going to act a lot like nails, where they are going to bend and bend and bend and then break. But here, all of the load is being put onto that. It's not adequately being transferred down to the ground. And so what we really want is we want there to be a shelf. And so if there is a shelf, then the wood rests onto the shelf, and then we're good to go. Otherwise, we have the wood resting on the fasteners, on the screws, and those screws are going to pull out, and then we're out of luck. And so again, we just want there to be a little bit of a shelf, so then that way that rests onto there and we are good to go. And there's a picture that was in the inspection report that shows that. But anyway, it's just an easy thing, and you can even, as long as it's going down to ground, as long as the structure is being supported all the way down to the ground, we are good to go. All right, next thing. Bedrooms, pretty please. Put smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, anything you can to protect and save your family from possible death. It's such an inexpensive investment. They last 10 years. You're talking $30 for a detector, 10 years. That's $3 a year. Would you like to spend $3 a year to make sure your family doesn't die? I would, and I do. And so I would highly recommend make sure you have smoke detectors anywhere in the house. It's just one of those really, really important things. So retention spring failure. On a window, windows have weight. So whenever I push that window up, I want that window to stay there, but it might not stay there unless it has a retention spring to counteract the weight of the window. So whenever the retention spring has failed, we want to get that replaced, repaired, whatever needs to happen, because we do not want to open the window and have it fall down onto your fingers or fall down, shatter the glass, and cut you, because that would be a bad thing. So retention spring, and if you don't open the windows, then don't fix it. Just leave it there. Like it doesn't matter. Anything that we mention, if you're comfortable with the way that it is, then you're comfortable with the way that it is. You don't have to fix anything that we say. It's just one of those things that you probably should. So next, egress, inadequate. So this is referred to as a bedroom. Let me just tell you something. This is not actually a bedroom. Why is it not a bedroom? Because if there was a fire, there is no secondary means of exit from that bedroom. There is no extra window, no nothing. This is an attic that was converted so that way you're able to rent more beds whenever somebody comes up here to go skiing. The problem is we also sell marijuana in this state. And so let's just say hypothetically that somebody is smoking, catches the house on fire, and their poor kids are upstairs, whatever. And now because they started that fire and the fire is gone and it's in front of that door, we have a very, very, very bad outcome. I don't know why I said the marijuana. There's a lot of things that can catch a house on fire. Hair straighteners. Oh, straight hair is the bane of our society. So basically what I'd say is if you have a hair straightener, look out for your kids. Be careful. And make sure you always have egress in every bedroom. So moving on, we have a furnace burner assembly dirty. So we want to make sure those furnace assemblies are clean because they could start a fire where the fire should not be. And also it puts a lot of deposits onto the burner assembly that should not be there as it's burning up that dust. So we want to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to make sure that our furnace is going to last as long as possible. So then we have a leak from a dishwasher, which is so funny because I'm always looking for dishwashers to leak, and they do leak very frequently. But this one, I walked by it probably like 100 times, and I didn't notice any leak. And as soon as I got that thermal camera, it just popped, and I was like, oh, there's the leak. And this is very, very minor. There could have been a food particle or something. Clean the seal that goes around the door, and you should be golden. But it's just so interesting what the thermal camera can see that my naked eye just cannot see. So tub faucet valves are not sealed. So same thing right here. I think this bottom picture here is a pretty good picture to show how far off of the wall it is. And then this here just basically shows that water can get down in between there. If it gets down in between there, it can get into the wall. If it gets into the wall, then you have mold, tiles start to pop off the wall, and you just have a bad outcome. How much is a $1.50 bottle of caulking? It's $1.50. And if you have a $1.50, you could use it to seal this, and that would be ideal for sure. So down here, cinder blocks, CMUs. I'm just going to tell you a secret. This is not the way you stack them. If you stack them like this, then you must be a kung fu artist because you're planning on breaking them. And the way that you want them to be stacked is different than this. You want it to be oriented so that way you have more structure, more support. And so right here, you can see that we already had a whole section just crumble. And so if you have a section underneath your house in your crawl space that's supporting the whole first floor, or maybe subsequent floors up above it because you have a wall that was installed that is a load-bearing wall, and you have a completely crumbled foundation, well, you're going to have a bad time. And that's just one of those things that I just worry whenever I see stuff like that. Next thing, if you're chopping firewood, okay, first off, if you're chopping firewood onto tile, you're doing it wrong. Secondly, if you're chopping firewood and the axe is coming all the way down and hitting the tile, you're doing it wrong. Check this out. The axe has a little bit of weight. You're going to take that axe, you're going to set it on top of that piece of wood. As that piece, you're going to move the axe and the wood at the same time. Now, if you want to cut on tile, then what you're going to do is you're going to butt the soft end of the wood onto the tile, and the natural weight of the axe head is actually going to split that. So without doing any big swings where you're going to cut off your fingers, you're holding on to the wood and you're holding on to the axe. You're moving them as one unit. And whenever it hits the ground, the axe head is going to inch by inch go a little bit lower until it has split that wood. There's no reason. This is abuse of tile, and I don't like that. So let's learn how to split wood safely and do it the right way. Well recovery test passed. This is amazing. So this particular house had a well, 4.69 gallons per minute, which is amazing. And what this means is that they are going to have enough water to sustain the needs of their family. Now, we have had multiple wells fail where they actually run completely dry. Shay just had one last week. And the well went completely dry and it was starting to pump air, and that's why we end the test, and that's why we stay so focused on the test that we're running, because that obviously is bad for the well. And so we just want to make sure that we are getting enough water to be able to sustain the needs of your family. So right here, let me just going to pop quiz time. Should you hang your metal hangers with weighted clothing on a 120 volt 15 amp wire that is fraying at the edges because of the excessive weight that you're putting on it? Should you? Yes or no? We'll give you a minute to decide. Very good. The answer is no. You should not hang stuff on electrical wires. So whenever it comes back to properly supporting electrical wires, the reason that we properly support electrical wires along with piping for gas and for plumbing is because we do not want them to be snagged on anything, and we don't want things hanging on them in a way that they were not intended. So this needs to be protected and supported. That would be more than ideal. Federal Pacific, I think on every one of these, we've talked about Federal Pacific circuit breakers that we find in every single, not every single, but in many of the homes that we inspect. Again, Federal Pacific has caused more fires than one could even count. And it's again, just like the Zinsco, it's a ticking time bomb. You need to get it out of your house. All right, vertical crack. So yeah, there is a vertical crack. But if you look at where the crack was and what was going on, basically, whenever you get wood at the house, the wood is going to be at about a 20% moisture. So that 20% moisture, fantastic. And then what happens is that as it dries out, especially here in Colorado, it's going to go all the way down to 5% moisture. Whenever it goes down to that 5% moisture, well, what's really happening there is that the wood is shrinking. Now, a lot of this wood is fast growth. So especially on these newer homes, we have that fast growth. So then that means that each ring, each year, it's growing more and more and more. So as it dries, it can shrink more than old growth or slow growth wood. And so you're going to see a lot more variation. So whenever one structure, the drywall, is staying like this and the other structure is shrinking, what will happen is you will get a vertical crack where those two seams are. So just something to think about, something to be aware of. Is it a big deal? No, it's probably not a big deal. It's probably just a cosmetic issue, and it's probably stopped because the wood has now dried. And actually, with new modern home builds, they're saying that you should be dehumidifying that house for a period of 3 months before you put up drywall. And having built stuff, I'm just like, who has time to dehumidify a house for 3 months to make sure that all the wood has shrunk uniformly before you put up the drywall? Nobody. Nobody's doing that. They should be, but nobody's doing it. All right. This floor is badly scratched up, messed up. This was in the same house where they were, axing their tile on their hearth. Just lots and lots of issues. Refinishing definitely needed. You're probably gonna have to go through the sander, then put down a fresh coat of poly, but all that furniture needs to be moved out and you need to basically start from scratch. All right, trash in the attic. Why does this matter? Well, this matters because I've bought a house and I've been burned. I've had an entire crawl space full of trash, taking 2 dump trailers to a landfill to get rid of all this just mouse-infested, disgusting whatever. And you know what my home inspector did? He didn't go in the crawl space because there was too much trash. Didn't tell me he didn't go in the crawl space, and didn't tell me there was trash in the crawl space. If I would have been notified of that, I could have had my realtor in that negotiation or in that contract say, you will remove all trash from premises. From inside the crawl space or whatever, because we know that it's there, so I need it to be gone, and that's going to be a part of the contract. But that never happened because I was never informed, and I kind of bought the house sight unseen because, well, just like the market today, the market in Summit County has always been crazy, and buying a house sight unseen is very, very common. And so anyway, the long story short is, I don't want anybody to run into the same issues that I ran into. And so I have myself and all my other home inspectors make sure that if there is trash on the premises, if there's trash in the attic, if there's trash in the crawl space, that we get that trash listed so that way you are aware that, hey, let's ask for a couple $100s to get a roll off. And then that way we have a credit of a couple $100s to cover the cost of that roll off. So that way we can then put all that trash in there and be done with it, or that the people selling the house are going to take care of it. So something to think about. All right, homemade structures. There's a lot of these around here where people just make things, and it's cool. Making is a great thing, but making it correctly is not a popular thing. And so there's just a lot of stuff that is made very poorly. And not only is it unsafe because of the way that it is made, but it also can damage the house because of the way that it's attached to the house, or because of the way that it does not. As you can see, this huge pile of snow on this flat surface in a high alpine environment where we get 6 feet of snow like it's nothing. Are you kidding me? We need to have some kind of slope, some kind of something, because right now all of that is now pushing into the seam because we have panels for the siding. We had 2 panels, and now all of that is going right at the same level as the panel, and it's going back in between the panels more than likely. And so that's just one of those things that it's like, if you're going to build it right. Just do it right. Speaking of which, remember we said the theme of today is improperly built decks. Not only is this not properly anchored, meaning that if there was an updraft pushing up onto this, that we can then have it lift and be unweighted and then fall over. Not only that, but it's not centered, and the piece of wood is no longer plumb. There's so many things that this deck just wants to fall over. This deck is in the mood to fall over. So the solution to this is that we really need to get the deck adequately supported on top of this post, and then we need the post to be adequately secured, not only to the ground, but to also the deck itself. And everything needs to be connected together to work as one unit. That is the objective. That is how things should be working. All right. At the bottom of these stairs, you can just roll down these stairs and go right through the window into the outside. I don't know if these stairs are an afterthought or whatever, but half of the window was above the stair, half of the window was below the stair. Not only does that make repair impossible, but it's also very unsafe. I don't know if any of you have ever interacted with a child that has a car or a doll or a toy at the top of some stairs. They basically, every single time, are going to take that and they're going to roll it down the stairs, throw it down the stairs, and it's going to roll, hit the wall. Now, what's happening here? Instead of hitting the wall, what they're hitting is a big glass window. There's just something wrong about that, because that window is going to be damaged if there are children in that house. That window is going to be damaged if you are carrying up a whole bunch of stuff and something falls out of your hand. It's just whenever a window is like that, doesn't matter. Are we going to change it? Can we change it? Nah, probably not. But it's just one of those things you need to be mindful of, because if you have kids, then you're probably very well aware of how much work goes into child-proofing a house. And this is not child-proof whatsoever. All right, next thing, same thing. We are at 5'5" is what, hey, there's the new tool. Would you look at that? So we are at 5'5" from the nose of the stair to where you're going to hit your head. And we need to be at 6'8". Now I am 5'10", and that means that I'm basically breaking my nose every time that I would walk down those stairs. So I really do think that these stairs were an afterthought, and I do not think that they were thought over very well before being put in. Now, the next thing is same exact house, and there's a little precursor. I don't know if you can see the railing through the window. Precursor, we'll get to that in a minute. But right here, code violation, no CO. Then we have all of this, black mold and whatever has been listed. Now, as an inspector, did I peel any of this stuff back? Did I look at things? Did I see the black mold? I see evidence of water intrusion, but the fact is, if there is a note, I am putting whatever that note is into the inspection report, because having a note like that is very important, because somebody identified it, and more than likely it's not put into the seller's disclosure. And so if I see a note on the table, if I, that says, hey, inspector, we have blah, 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 I put that in the inspection report. If I see a note written on the wall, such as this, I take a picture of that, I put it in the inspection report. Did I see black mold? No, I didn't see black mold. But does that mean that there is not black mold? No, there probably is black mold. And that's why I took a picture of that. So that way somebody is aware that black mold may exist in this particular wall because of the water damage coming in, because nobody is taking the snow off of the deck. And because nobody's taking the snow off the deck, as we said earlier, spring runoff, and we are now damaging the house. Now in this house, there were pests in the house, and big ones. And I have never been so anxious doing a home inspection. Every single room I shouted, hello, animals, don't come out and bite me. And I made myself very well known. And then you hear the noises in the walls, and you hear the noises on the floors, on the thing up above you. And your mind is like, I'm going to get rabies today. Today is the day that I get rabies. And you come to terms with it, and you continue doing the inspection. But basically, yeah, there were some pests, some big ones in this house. Did not like that. Did not like that whatsoever. So anyway, there's that damaged moisture. Sorry, I got those pictures twice. All right, we saw that railing. Let's talk about what we see here. So what I drew was a straight line, and what the deck is not a straight line. And so what has happened is, because of all this snow load, we have the static loading of this deck is greater than what the deck was rated for. And so now, if you take a look at this picture here, the deck is just bowed in the middle. Now, they have done things to try to repair it. However, too little, too late. The deck is done. The deck needs to be removed from the structure. There's so many other issues going on, which you can actually see in the circle right here, where it anchors into the house. We have a whole bunch of issues. I mean, really, the fact of the matter is, if you are in a high alpine environment and you are going to have a flat surface, you need to have a snow removal solution in place, whether that be you actively go or you hire a management company to actively remove the snow. It needs to be done. Snow needs to be removed from flat surfaces. Otherwise, you are going to have damage just like this. And what a good thing to end on. That makes me just ecstatic. That makes me just so happy that is exactly what we ended on. So in general terms, I mean, every house that you find is going to have issues, as we expect. It's just going to have issues. That's just the thing. And we can pretty much resolve all of the issues that we have going on. I really want to give a shout out to Shay and Jeremy, my two inspectors that have been doing a phenomenal job. We just had our in-service training, and we didn't really do anything at our in-service training. Normally, we do tasks, we do skills training, we do all this other kind of stuff. Now, granted, they get this video so that way they can review things that may have been missed or really big issues to be on the lookout for. And just general philosophies and ideas about why things are the way they are and how we manage certain things. But what we did on this in-service training is, since the mask mandate has been lifted, we went out to a restaurant. We went out to a place called Nizawa's, and we had sushi, and it was phenomenal. So as a business, I do my best to take my people out and show them appreciation, both by doing our in-service training to get them a little bit further educated, what little continuing education, in addition to the continuing education that they already have to do. But we go out, we have food, we bring everybody's wives, we bring kids, we bring everybody to this in-service training, and we go out, we have food, and we make ourselves more of a family, because at Two Moose Home Inspections, I think that we are very much a family. And that way, if I had a radon detector, I was going on vacation, I had a radon detector, and I said, hey, Shay, I set the radon detector, can you go pick it up? He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then today he's like, hey, you're heading out to Fairplay. On your way, would you mind picking up my radon detector since it's like an hour away from my house, whatever. I'm like, heck yeah, let's get it done. And that's the great thing about having inspectors that are working together as a family, is that we're always looking out for one another. And I think that that's very important. And to have our families there, I think it makes everybody feel better about the company, about the business, about how we conduct ourselves. And I'll tell you, it's just been phenomenal. I'm not a fan of sushi. I did eat some, and it's okay, but don't tell my wife because she'll make me eat more. But it was actually pretty good. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to all my employees, and I think that we're doing a fabulous job. I think we have a wonderful culture here, and I think that we did a really good job. Oh, and another reason we went to Nozawa's is because Jeremy left his job that he had previously. He is now 100% full-time at Two Moose Home Inspections, and that is really, really awesome. There's always a little bit of fear, hesitation, and resistance to moving away from what you have, going from full-time here to full-time here, full-time to part-time to full-time, and having these changes in careers. Can I do the job? Can it support me? Is it exactly what I need? And I'm really, really pleased to find that he feels positively about the business enough that he is now 100% full-time, just like me, just like Shay, and we are just kicking butt, and we are doing a great job, and it just really, really makes me happy. So if you have any additional questions about anything that I covered during the in-service training, pretty please send us an email, info@twomoosehomeinspections.com. If you'd like to schedule a home inspection, you can contact our office or just by telephone. Or if you want to go to our website, you can click on our online scheduler. And whenever you click on our online scheduler, then you can see our availability, you can see our pricing. And also our website is a huge resource for just about everything else that we offer as a service. And it just keeps growing, every week. So in general terms, I think that we have everything pretty well laid out for a new prospective client to understand things. And if you are already a client of ours, if you are already a realtor that we work with and you have specific questions, I have had realtors that ask me about other inspections that they got from other companies, and they say, hey, can you explain this to me a little bit? Because I didn't understand it. And yes, if you want to ask us a question about an inspection that we did not do, yeah, give us a holler. Let us know. We geek out on homes, and that is a fact. So anyway, feel free to reach out to us with any home inspection related question, and we'll go from there. So again, if you want to schedule anything online or our office, and I'd like to say thank you and have a wonderful day.